Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. I am the Reverend John Cullinan, your minister here. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people and gather together in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Whoever you are, wherever you are right now, at home or here in the sanctuary with us, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome into this community. I want to extend a special welcome today to any visitors or first-time guests we have among us, and I know there are a few of you today. I'd like to invite you to join us after the service in the fellowship hall for some coffee and conversation with your friends and neighbors here, and then join us back here in the sanctuary noon or probably a little before, depending on how things go. I'll be presenting an Introduction to Unitarian Universalism workshop. We will talk about the history of our faith movement, the principles that guide us, who we are today, and maybe a little bit about how you can get involved, and definitely some time to answer all of the many questions I'm sure you have about us right now. Welcome once again, and let us begin worship. We cross thresholds every day, from room to room, from outside to inside, and back again, from here to there, from anywhere and everywhere, from age to age. Each threshold offers us a new opportunity for change, for renewal, for transformation, from what we were and what we are to what we yet can be. In this hour and in this place, we cross a threshold from our day-to-day everydayness into space and time attuned to the other, to the sacred, to the holy, into an awareness of new life pregnant with possibilities. How will we be renewed in this moment? How will we be changed in this hour? How will we be transformed through this gathering of beloved community? Come, you longing, thirsty souls. Come, let us worship together on this beautiful morning. Would you all please rise and body your spirit and join in our opening hymn, number 1000, in your teal hymnal. standing for our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. Please be seated. I light these candles for all our joys and all our sorrows that we are holding quietly in our hearts this week. Let us be together now in a moment of silence. Let us join together now in a moment of prayer and reflection. Eternal and beloved, gracious source of all life and all love, we come together this morning grateful for this time out of time, which we have set apart so that we might become more fully present to our own selves, to each other, and to that which we know as holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. We gather together this morning from different directions, different horizons. Our lives tell different stories, but still we gather. For in spite of those differences, we know these things to be true, that we are each free to tell our own story, that the arc of each story begins within us, but never ends with us. And that though our stories may be different, our own tales are enriched and given context by the telling of others. May we be reminded of our need to hear one another's stories. May we find in our hearts a place of deep and reverent listening, an acceptance of different stories. And when the time comes, may we have the courage to speak our own stories out into the circle of care and concern. For these and for all our joys and sorrows, whether we share them aloud or hold them quiet in our hearts, we offer this prayer today. In the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, we pray in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. Please remain seated for our meditation hymn.
And if the young and young at heart want to come up for a time for all ages, so if you're an adult or a kid or a youth, you are welcome up here to be closer for our time for all ages today. So welcome, everybody. So today we are talking about our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles and what Unitarian Universalism is. And so I have this awesome little story that goes over our 7 principles. And we're going to be talking about how do we put those principles into action, right? So we'll have some little stories here too. So the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism are promises that we make to each other and to ourselves that help us to be the best we can be. The principles are about how we should treat each other, what we love, and what we hope for ourselves and for all living things. And every day gives us chances to put our principles into action. So I think some of y'all can name some of these principles, and we have our kid version that we're going to do today because the other version is very wordy, right? It's still good. I mean, it's great. I love our 7 principles, but sometimes I need the kid version too, right? So our first principle is every single person is important, right? So this is a promise we make to each other. And I have something to, like a little scenario that maybe we could put this principle into action. So you guys might have to help me out here. So today, there's a stranger. This is at school, okay? So think about being in school. Today, there's a stranger sitting next to Carla in math class. Carla's teacher, Mrs. Jackson, says the new girl's name is Patty. Mrs. Jackson asks the whole class to say, "Welcome, Patty," together, but Patty just stares at her desk. Carla remembers her own first day at this school. It was so hard to find her way around, and everyone else seemed to know each other. When the bell rings for recess, everyone puts on their jackets to go to the playground. Mia, Carla's best friend, walks past the new girl and grabs Carla's arm. "Let's race to the swings," she says. So how do you think Patty feels about her first recess in a new school? What do you think? Scared? Yeah. And what could Carla do to make Patty feel welcome and important? Maybe invite her to join the recess, right? Right? So going to the swings, awesome. Yep. So number 2, our second UU principle, we treat one another with respect. What do you think that means? Does anyone have ideas? How we treat people with respect? Miss Susan, yeah? Treat people the way you want to be treated, right? Yes, awesome. Cool. And number 3, we spend our whole lives learning how to be the best people we can be. Yeah. So let's see. We have another story that I might need answers for. Ready? So what does that mean? Lily asks Maya about the necklace Maya's wearing, which has a little gold cup with a flame coming out of it, kind of like our chalice here. Maya explains that it's called a flaming chalice and is the symbol of her religion. "I'm a Unitarian Universalist," she tells Lily. Lily shows Maya her earrings, which are crosses hanging from little silver hoops. "My family believes that you have to get saved by Jesus to go to heaven." "Well, we believe different things," Maya answers. "My family believes there are lots of ways to get to heaven." So my question for you guys is, do you think people can believe different things without fighting? What do you guys think? Maybe? Yeah? Cool. Yeah, so this principle is about how we learn to be the best people that we can be, right? And respecting other people's beliefs. And the 4th principle, together we learn about the world and what is true. So we keep learning. That's pretty cool. What do you guys like to learn about? Anyone? Black holes. What do you like to learn about? Space. Yeah, cool. Any others? What you guys like to keep learning about? Susan? Nature. Yeah. Yeah, so we keep learning throughout our lives, and that's one of our UU principles too. And then our fifth principle is everyone has the right to use their voice and be heard, right? So we stand up for our beliefs and our values, and we speak out, right? So that one's a good one as well. And then our sixth principle is together we work to create a world that is peaceful and fair for everyone, right? So that's another thing that we do in this community and outside of it. And then number 7 is we respect our earth and all living things. So that's our other principle. And so today, for our intention table, we are going to make our little pipe cleaner flaming chalices. And our chalice stands for the warmth of our community and the brightness that love brings to the world. And it's a light that illuminates our actions for peace and justice in this world and reminds us to put our principles in action, right? So you can make a flaming chalice at our intention table over here, a heart, and then also, if you look in the fellowship hall after the service, at our UU booth yesterday, we wrote down things we loved. We wanted to spread love, and people wrote a ton of different things. And so you guys can write what you love and put it on our bulletin board too, so we can spread the love. All right, and that is our time for all ages this morning. Thank you all for participating.
people of many paths who are brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers. Every day, people are inundated with information, overwhelmed by demands, and pulled by a culture that seeks to divide us from the web of life. Unitarian Universalism reconnects, bringing people together with meaning and inspiration. We are a house without walls, a congregation without spiritual limits, and a movement that calls you to put more faith in yourself, your community, and your beliefs. We are a faith that honors your mind, your heart, your journey. Simply put, we are a guided path towards a better you and a better world. Grounded in hundreds of years of thoughtful religious communities, we are people of many generations, ethnicities, genders and sexualities, and spiritual backgrounds. People engaged in making the world a better place. People focusing on what really matters: love, justice, integrity, and hope. Unitarian Universalists have different beliefs, but shared values. We are Unitarian Universalists, and at the same time, we may also be agnostic, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, humanist, Jewish, Muslim, pagan, atheist, believers in God, and those who let the great mystery be. The diversity of beliefs you'll find in a Unitarian Universalist community is one of our strengths. We are always learning how to see the world from a different perspective. What unites us are our core principles that uphold 7 real-world values: believing in the worthiness of every person, showing compassion and fairness, accepting others for who they are, growing through a personal search for truth, leading with democratic spirit, working for justice, and understanding that everything is interconnected. 7 days a week, Unitarian Universalists live these principles by doing. When we gather, we worship, reflect, and remind ourselves what matters most in life. Whatever our age, we learn to live with more wisdom, more awareness, more gratitude, and more soul. We show our values by showing up to answer the call for social justice. We have a track record of siding with love for civil rights, LGBTQ equality, immigration reform, environmental sustainability, reproductive justice, racial justice, and more. Find what it means to live your deepest values out loud. Join us on this extraordinary adventure of faith.
In the beginning, there was nothing. And then I hear a huge bang of some sort, and then there was the great heart at the center of all things. The great heart's only purpose was to love. And yet, after millennia of trying to love, the great heart realized that there was nothing to love yet, and so the heart burst itself forth further out into the universe and created the galaxies and the planets, the stars. But even that was not enough. The great heart did not know what it was loving still, these inert objects. It needed someone to love, and it needed someone to know it in ways it could not know itself. And so came about humanity. Humanity was created by the great heart for the purpose of knowing the great heart. And before each soul was sent to earth, the great heart gave it its task. Know yourself to the depths that are possible for your finite mind, and know one another in all your myriad connections to the breadth that your mind can perceive them. And then when you're finished, come back and tell me all about it. so that everybody together might give us a picture of who we are as a whole. But at birth, we forget the mission right away. The task is erased from our mind because we're babies and we cannot hold something of that magnitude in our heads. And so it's on us to rediscover what it is we are here to do, who it is we are here to connect with. If we're lucky, we relearn the task over time. We start to see the connections with one another and with the world around us. But frequently, walls are thrown up, obstacles get in our way, being able to see, being able to experience one another and the world to the fullness which we are capable of. We deal with increasing and impenetrable bounds placed around us, inhibiting our experience. Now, those of you who've been around with me long enough are very familiar with this ancient creation myth that I just made up a few years ago. A little bit of Big Bang Theory, a little bit of mythological language, a little bit of Carl Sagan thrown in there, just something to hook our minds onto to get an understanding of what our purpose is here together. And while the story's made up, the roadblocks, the obstacles are very, very real. We're living in a time of increasing division, increasing sense of difference, to the extent where it feels like uncrossable gaps. Canyons too deep for us to traverse and get around. Over the last few years, it may feel that we have been getting divided to such an extent that we might experience ourselves in these moments of isolation, and we've had those isolated moments of late. We're experiencing ourselves perhaps as a tribe of one, the individual. And it might be very easy in those times when we feel like we're ready to face the world again, to come out through that door, burst out of our isolation and say, okay, universe, come at me, bro. It's you and me. And when I do that, I'm just setting myself up for a really bad day. But instead, if we can flip the script on the sense of isolation, if we can come to understand that sense of aloneness as just a period of solitude, a break from the world around us where we can start to listen once again to the depths of our own souls and the depths coming at us, we might start to feel something different from, okay, world. We might start to feel a longing, a desire, a need for something different from the world we're part of, a need for something that isn't division, but differences that just are. We might find ourselves saying to our own selves in the universe, it doesn't have to be this way. I want to see the bonds again. I want to understand the connections. I want to understand my own depths and the breadths of how we are one. And how do we even start going about that when we've lived in the sense of isolation for so long? And the answer is, get religion. I know. That seems like a simplistic answer, especially coming from a Unitarian Universalist pastor. But here's the truth. Every great religious movement, every great teacher in history has begun from that same launching point in some variation or another, in the language they understood, in the beliefs as they knew them, of it does not have to be this way. We can do better, be better. And when I say get religion, I mean it in its most nascent etymological meaning. The word religion comes to us from Latin, from the word religare, to bind, leading to religio, an obligation or a bond. To get religion, to have one, is to want to understand and know the bonds that keep us together. What is between us that connects us? Now, some religions will impose those bonds upon you. They will tell you what they are and expect you to conform to them. And others will seek what's already there, focus their longing to know on the connections that were already there when the great heart exploded around us. Religion is ultimately a human endeavor. It's a human invention. It grows out of that longing, that desire to know something more, something better, something bigger, something I have just taken to calling the something, however you come to know it. Because that desire doesn't need to be for a god or gods. The desire at root is the need to feel connected to the something, to one another, and the desire to be loved, especially by those who share our own desire. And so we seek community. We seek to be with one another in order to satisfy that longing. And life in community together is the start of the answer to how we get across our divisions again. It's the first step, but we find frequently that not all communities satisfy the need, satisfy the longing. Some circles of community are too small. They draw a tight, small circle around the boundaries of who we are, who is us, and throw up an obstacle for us once again to being able to see the breadth of our connections. Some communities want to limit our understanding of that. Some circles are a little too rigid in their points of view of the world. Their window onto the world is limited. Some of the panes are clear and you can see parts of the world through that, and some have been muddied and some outright broken and boarded up. Not a full vision of the world as it can be, of the ways we are already connected to one another. And some circles, and sometimes these are all the same circle, tell us they have all the answers. They'll tell us what the connections are. They will explain to us exactly how the universe works. But often we'll find that those answers are pointing in a direction that is not leading us where we intended to go, don't match up with the longing that we've been feeling this whole time. And ultimately, many communities, in the end, don't seem all that interested in bridging the divides that break our hearts. But disappointment after disappointment, we still find ourselves pulled forward by that statement of desire. It doesn't have to be this way. I want to be part of something more. And if you think about it long enough, you come to realize that is a statement of faith. It doesn't have to be this way. Even for those who have no belief in any kind of anthropomorphic God or any kind of deity at all, even those who are rooted in their own sense of humanity and grounded to the earth, that is a statement of faith because it is an expression of hope for a future that we just haven't gotten around to building yet, based in our own sense of our humanity and compassion. So what's needed in the community we're searching for that fills the desire, that satisfies the need? What do we need in a community? We need to find a laboratory where we can test this hypothesis. We need to join a gym where we can flex those compassionate interconnection muscles. We're looking for a community of people of diverse beliefs and backgrounds and cultures and points of view. Each of us charting our own path through life, sharing just one common belief, just one statement of faith. It doesn't have to be this way. The world can be better. It can be kinder. The world can be more just. The world can be more whole. When I'm asked by those who are not familiar with our community what exactly a Unitarian Universalist church is, that's often the answer I give. It's the laboratory for figuring out this experiment of how do we live together across our differences and build a community that is still loving and compassionate, instead of going off into our corners. This is the gym where we get to exercise those muscles of compassion and of seeing the depth and the breadth of who we are. We are here as a church community to figure out how to build a loving community across differences on a small scale. On a here in this room, here in this congregation scale, so that we can carry the lessons we have learned from our experiments out into the larger community in ever-widening circles. In here, if we're doing our work right, I hope what we're doing is instilling the habits that lead us to the something better, to the something. Lead us to kindness and justice and wholeness. Lead us to creating a way of being within ourselves and without of these walls that sets an example to the world of what is possible. That idea of possibility can trip us up a little bit, though. Because if you've been listening to me long enough now, everything I've said sounds impossible. There's no way we can bridge these divides. There's no way we can build that community. All of the evidence out there is pointing to the silliness of my hypothesis in the first place. And you would be right to think so. You would be right to think I'm talking nonsense right now. To doubt any of this, especially when we know that we're dealing with imperfect human nature, is normal and natural at this point. It would be absolutely normal to walk in and come for a few weeks and latch on to that statement of faith. It doesn't have to be this way, and then start thinking, what am I thinking? What am I doing here? Who's this guy? Am I good enough to pull this off? Am I smart enough? Am I kind enough? Am I enough? But the faith that compels us into this community needs those doubts as much as our hopes, so that we can temper our own egos and our own sense of hubris, that we can accomplish everything at once. We need those doubts because they point us in the direction of where we need to do our work next. What we don't know is where we need to go next. It's possible even to hold that sense of faith and that sense of doubt together at the same time. To sit here on a Sunday morning and simultaneously think it doesn't have to be this way, and also, who am I to say this or even attempt it? It's possible to hold those at the same time because that's just human nature. Being human is living in all sorts of paradox all the time. Yet another reason why we need each other. This community needs all of the faith you have to offer in what is possible, and it needs all of your doubts that come about because of our very human nature, and it requires our imperfections. Because this church is not only the church of our interconnections, it is also the church of the holy mistake. We understand, or at least we try to remind ourselves on a constant basis, that the imperfection of what we are doing and how we are trying to get there is just baked into the program, just by our very natures. Humans gonna human. The question is, what do we do with that imperfection? What do we do with the failure that is coming? We fail with gusto. We do it anyway. We do it so that, in the words of the playwright Samuel Beckett, we try again, we fail better. That's how the habits of the big something are developed. It's all trial and error. It's all about the imperfection. And in a world that seems to be increasingly demanding perfection of us, or at the very least, the thin veneer of perfection presented outward to the world, a community that welcomes all of our fears and our fumbles and our failings, a community like that is a point to get grace. The grace so many of us need because of what the world around us is demanding. The Great Heart's given us a task with one another. And it knows we're going to forget the minute we get here. It desires for us to find the way back, to rediscover the task, to lean into it. And that is what I hope this church community is, the space to rediscover our connections, the space to develop the habits of a beloved community, all while offering the grace when we fall short again and again with gusto. A place where all of your faith and all of your doubts are welcome. May it be so. As we prepare to return to our everyday lives, now it's time to give something of the gifts of this congregation back to the larger community we are part of. It is time for our offering. During the month of August, all cash and undesignated funds we receive through our basket or through our Givelify app, if you want to make an electronic donation, all of that will be given to our friends at Tewa Women United. in support of their work with Native women here in our community. The offering will now be accepted. May what you give bring you joy and into deeper relationship with this community. Just a few announcements before we depart. First up, as I mentioned at the beginning of the service, I will be presenting an introduction to Unitarian Universalism right here in the sanctuary. Because I did not preach for 45 minutes this morning, I think we'll start a little earlier than noon, so you don't have to hang out too long. We'll go at about 11:45, just so I can set up in here for that. I hope you'll join us. This is great for newcomers. This is great for long-timers to reconnect with the history of our movement, who we are, where we came from, and answer any questions you might have. And as I announced last week too, we are in need of 3 to 4 teachers who are willing to teach the 3rd to 6th grade class for this fall's and next semester's session of our religious education program. As we are opening back up, we are coming back to full-on classroom RE here in the church in the 9:30 hour before worship. We have almost everyone we need except for this particular grade, and the curriculums are great. We are doing UU values through Legos and Harry Potter, and Tina really wants you to do this. I don't know, you can't see through the mask. She's pouting right now. She really wants you to help her out. She needs you to come forward and help out with these classes, because we want to be able to offer to all families coming in and all of our longtime families a religious education that meets their needs. So if that is something you think you might be interested in, talk to Tina over there, and she can tell you all about it and get you signed up if that is what you would like to do, how you would like to serve us this year. And now, please rise in body or spirit and join in our closing hymn, number 295 in the gray hymnal. Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace. Thank you.
Got me really thinking.
Good. Good, good. That's what they're for.
That's what they're for. I was particularly thinking about that if people come to churches, one